The Philadelphia Eagles conclude the 2025 preseason tonight against the New York Jets. The Watch Guide coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Friday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. The Eagles conclude the preseason tonight, as they have tended to do pretty much the majority of our lives as Eagles fans, against the New York Jets. Like, they stopped that for a couple years, but the Eagles-Jets finale in the preseason is something that we've all grown accustomed to, and that will take place tonight. And there are some things still to watch, although the final preseason game is the one normally people kind of ignore, and I don't want to say overlook, but sometimes just choose not to watch it. We know the starters never play in this game, especially with the current era of Eagles football where starters almost never play in the preseason. There is still a good amount to watch in today's game. So coming up on today's edition of the show, I do have a watch guide for you sickos out there that are going to watch this game from start to finish. Eagles-Jets tonight kickoff is at 7:30. 3 players to watch on offense, 3 players to watch on defense, because although this isn't that important for the starters, this game does mean a lot to the bottom of this roster. There's a lot of guys still fighting for a chance to make this 53-man roster. Even if they don't make the Eagles, this is a chance for a lot of these guys to continue their dream and stay in the NFL. If they impress, even if they don't do enough, like a running back of this football team, like Montrell Johnson tonight or Shunderick Powell, they have a very little, slim to none chance to make the roster, at least in Philadelphia, in my opinion, but a great game can help them catch on with another football team. So this game does mean a lot to a lot of players on this roster, and so I tend to not overlook it and kind of ignore it like maybe some others do. On the offensive side of the football, there's a lot of players actually that I'm super intrigued by, not just for the short term, but for the long term. Like, the main guys that I'm watching today are up front. Like, I am watching the Eagles' young offensive linemen, specifically 3 rookie tackles. I'm watching Myles Hinton, I'm watching Cameron Williams, and I'm watching Holland Pierce. Those 3 rookie tackles are who I'm watching pretty much more than maybe anybody on both sides of the football, because I think when you add up all 4 rookie offensive linemen the Eagles either drafted or brought in as undrafted, rookie free agents, there's only one that is a lock to make this team, and I think that's Drew Kendall. I think Kendall showed that not only is he a versatile piece that can play both guard, he played some left guard last week in practice, he's also a really good center prospect. That's what he played at Boston College. He's also your primary center backup right now, in my opinion. If Cam Jurgens were to get injured, it's not Landon Dickerson, when he's healthy, kicking back over to center. No, Drew Kendall, I think, is your backup center. So Kendall's somebody I actually even said I'm comfortable starting this year at guard. Like, I think he is a really high-end backup already. So he's a lock, but when you look at the other tackles, Myles Hinton, the first draft pick of all these guys out of Michigan, a 5th-round selection. Cameron Williams, a 6th-round pick out of Texas, who a lot of people thought, if he stayed in college one more year, next season could be like a 2nd or 3rd-round prospect, going from a day 3 player to a day 2 player. He could have been a potential steal. Those 2 I'm watching close. Holland Pierce, a massive human being, 6'8", like 330 pounds. I want to see if one of these 3 guys can secure a roster spot. I want to see if a couple of them can make this football team, because it's not guaranteed. The Eagles have a lot of other veteran linemen that they probably want to keep on this football team. I think when you look at Kendall Lamb, Darian Kennard, Matt Pryor, Trevor Keegan, Brett Toth, like, there's a lot of these football players that have experience ahead of these young guys that the Eagles will probably want to keep a few of those players. So can these rookies convince them, hey, don't create that phantom IR spot for me. Don't put me on the practice squad. Like, I belong on this 53. In my opinion, I think 1 or 2 guys can make it. I don't think all 3 will make the roster. My prediction is that Myles Hinton ends up on the 53 as one of your backup tackles. I think Cameron Williams does get that phantom IR designation. Stash him away, because I don't think he'll survive waivers. And he won't stay on the practice squad. Another team, I think, would pick him up. Holland Pierce is the prospect that I think best fits the practice squad. I would like to develop him on the practice squad, and then I would love to see Hinton and or Cameron Williams make this roster, because I think all three of them have significant upside, but I don't know if the Eagles trust a rookie tackle playing right away if Lane Johnson or Jordan Mailata were to get hurt. That's why they brought in Kendall Lamb. I think they like Darian Kennard more than we give them credit for. They also do have Matt Pryor, who I thought was going to play more guard than tackle this offseason. He's been primarily playing left and right tackle. So at least a couple of those veterans are going to make the football team. So how many offensive linemen do they keep? Do they keep 9? Do they keep 10? Maybe there's room for a couple of these rookie tackles. I think probably they keep 1, maybe 2. We'll see. So I'm really watching Hinton, Williams, and Pierce very closely. And I'm also watching, Kendall Lamb is another guy, if he plays in this football game, I'm very interested to see what Kendall Lamb does, because although for the long term, I'm more invested in Myles Hinton and Cameron Williams and even Holland Pierce to a degree, Kendall Lamb this year is your new version of Fred Johnson. He's replacing Fred Johnson as that primary tackle backup. If Lane Johnson were to get hurt, if Jordan Mailata does get injured, I think it is Kendall Lamb that's up next. I don't know if it would be Darian Kennard, who's been playing some guard this summer. I don't know if it would be Matt Pryor, who has played right and left tackle, played right tackle primarily in the preseason. I think Kendall Lamb, who has a lot of starting experience in Miami over the last couple of years, I think he is the first man up. He is your Fred Johnson from 2024. So I want to see how he looks, because I think that spot he's holding this year, the backup tackle position, is maybe outside of what Tanner McKee has right now as QB2, that is the most important reserve spot on the 53-man roster, because if Mailata or Lane Johnson goes down, I think that impacts this football team more than losing any starter that isn't named Jalen Hurts. That injury is the one that could potentially derail the season more than any, outside of obviously losing your starting quarterback. So it's all about the trenches for me today on offense. I'm watching Kendall Lamb, Myles Hinton, Cameron Williams, and then definitely Holland Pierce. And then the third player I'm watching, quarterback Kyle McCord. I think he can lock up that QB3 spot tonight with a strong showing. Although he's ahead of DTR right now, he's not out of the woods. And if he doesn't have a strong showing, they might not choose DTR over Kyle McCord, but I think McCord has to show today that he belongs on the 53-man roster and not just the practice squad. McCord might be kept over DTR, but he's not guaranteed, even if he beats out Thompson-Robinson, he's not guaranteed to be carried on this roster over an extra offensive lineman. Are the Eagles going to really choose Kyle McCord over keeping Cameron Williams or Holland Pierce on this roster, or an extra edge rusher? I'm not sure. But if he has a strong showing today, normally the Eagles do like to keep 3 quarterbacks. They kept 3 quarterbacks last year. They want to develop McCord, I think, kind of like they did Tanner McKee, and keep that pipeline of inexpensive quality backups going. But I don't think he's done enough yet to earn that roster spot. I thought that passing touchdown to Ainias Smith last week was a really good step in the right direction. Standing in there, knowing he's going to get licked in the red zone, just get drilled, still delivers a really accurate touchdown pass to Smith. That was a good start, but he was still pretty inefficient last week. I want to see him be more aggressive in this game. I want to see him take some downfield shots like he did at Syracuse. Let's see that mobility a little bit more, because I know he's capable of making plays outside of structure. Very interested to see what Kyle McCord does as well. So those are the guys on offense. If you're a sicko like me and you're watching Eagles-Jets on a Friday night in the summer, one of the last few warm summer days we have, but you're ready for Eagles football, watch the rookie tackles, watch Kendall Lamb, and then watch Kyle McCord. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, 3 defensive players to watch in Eagles-Jets, the preseason finale tonight. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. Yahoo Fantasy is kicking off the fantasy football season in just 13 days. Eagles-Cowboys kicking off the entire NFL season. This year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and 13 of my guys, we're in a 14-team league, 2 keepers, very specific rules and scoring formats. We need Yahoo Fantasy to really be able to customize our league we've been doing since 2009. and they're capable. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is actually dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues. It's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team, they get eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league as well. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Louis DiBiase joining you on this Friday edition of the show. One final preseason game preview, and then we focus on week one. Eagles-Cowboys, 13 days away, 2 weeks from yesterday. We will have regular season Philadelphia Eagles football. They're going to raise a Super Bowl banner in front of the Dallas Cowboys. Like, this is what we dreamed for. To quote Meek Mill, we used to pray for times like this. Cannot wait. The season is right around the corner, less than 2 weeks away. But tonight is still a very important day for Howie Roseman, for Nick Sirianni to evaluate this roster, to decide who makes the 53-man roster. I think it's equally, if not especially as important to Vic Fangio in the defensive side of the football, because on defense, again, there's still starting jobs that are up for grabs. Like, I think obviously what we're watching tonight are the corners. Like, Adoree Jackson is now the favorite to start week one against Dallas. Like, unfortunately, by default, Adoree, I think, is the guy right now. But here's one final game. Like, let's see. Is Kelee Ringo even going to play? Missed some practice this week with a quad injury. If he does he have it in him to earn that starting job? Like, let's see him make some plays on the football like he did last year in the preseason. Like, where was that game against Baltimore? I want to see that again. Get an interception. Make some pass deflection. Some good tackles. Show Vic Fangio that the original plan should still be the plan heading into the regular season. Will Ja'Cory and Bennett play? Like, both of these guys, Bennett and Ringo, have been banged up this week, so they haven't really been able to make up ground on Adoree Jackson. I just want one of these young guys to give us a reason to not start Adoree Jackson. And if it is Adoree, I want to see more than what I've seen, because I have not been overly impressed in 2 preseason games. And from what I've seen in certain practices, haven't been overly impressed. We'll see. I would like to see him make plays and prove me wrong, but I'm still a little bit worried about that outside cornerback spot. Again, zoomed in. I'm not worried about it it's going to hold back the defense. But in a vacuum, like that third cornerback spot, yeah, I think we're in a worse spot than maybe we originally anticipated. So here's one final game. Like, let's see what we've got. Ja'Cory and Bennett looked solid last week, but I want Ringo or Jackson to make me feel better, because I think those two are the ones most likely to start week one against Dallas. So I'm watching the corners. And there's a couple underrated pass rushers I'm watching as well on the defensive line, because I think those spots aren't set in stone quite yet either. For me, like the edge rusher spot, I think that Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche, those are your top 4 guys. They're not going anywhere. I think those are your top 4 in this rotation. All are going to play a pretty significant role in 2025, unless they go out there and trade for somebody, or, sign another free agent like Zadarius Smith, who else is out there? Jadeveon Clowney, Preston Smith. If not, those are your top 4, but that 5th spot is still up for grabs. And we talked a lot about Patrick Johnson and the solid summer that he's had, his ability to play on special teams. We've talked about Antoine Powell-Ryland, who's the Eagles' final draft pick of 2025, has a lot of pass rushing upside. Somebody we haven't talked about a lot that the Eagles signed this summer, though, that I think has a really good chance to make the team today with a good performance, is Ogbo Okunrakwo. Like, I feel like I personally, at least, and a lot of people don't talk about him a lot as a guy that can make this edge team and maybe even have a role, depending on the production we get from Uche and Ojulari. But Okunrakwo has a lot of starting experience, has a lot of playing experience with the Cleveland Browns, and he's actually quietly had a pretty solid summer with Philadelphia since he was signed over a month ago. Like, Okunrakwo, I thought, looked really solid in that first preseason game against Cincinnati. He made some plays against Cleveland. And again, compared to Patrick Johnson and Antoine Powell-Ryland, like, this guy actually has proven production across from the best pass rusher in football, Myles Garrett, where Rockwell, like, yeah, he never had, 7 to 10 sacks, but this was a guy that consistently over a 3-year span had, 3 to 5 sacks. And if that's your fifth guy, like, that's not bad. I actually am kind of hoping Rockwell goes out there and earns a spot tonight, because I think he is the most experienced and probably, at least in 2025, the most productive pass rusher that you're going to get. Again, of those other guys, of those other players you have currently on the roster, it's up for grabs. I would say right now it's Antoine Powell-Ryland is the farthest behind in that 3-man competition. Patrick Johnson, because he does have that special teams ability, probably puts him ahead of Rockwell right now. The Eagles are familiar with Patrick Johnson. He had a really good preseason opener against Cincinnati from a pass rushing perspective. Like, he was really good getting to the quarterback from the edge. So Johnson has the versatility. Rockwell, though, has had a pretty underrated summer, and he has the experience. He has the more, again, compared to the other two, he has the more proven production on the edge. So he's a guy that I feel like not a lot of people are talking about, but quietly might just make this football team if they keep 5 edge rushers. Rockwell, number 50 on the line of scrimmage today. Keep an eye out for him. I think he could earn a spot on this 53 if he gets to the quarterback pretty consistently. And then another guy that, again, quietly under the radar because he's like the 6th offensive tackle right now on the depth chart, but how about Jacob Sykes? Jacob Sykes is a player that I'm not projecting to make the football team. I think you have 5 defensive tackles locked in. It's Jalen Carter, it's Jordan Davis, it's Moro Ujoma, Ty Robinson, and Gabe Hall. Like, those are your top 5. But Jacob Sykes, maybe they keep 6 defensive tackles. Vic Fangio said last year he normally likes to have like 6 or 7 hand-in-the-dirt defensive linemen, whether it's a true defensive end or a true defensive tackle. Jacob Sykes could make the team, and if not, this is a really intriguing practice squad prospect. I think he made a number of eye-popping plays in both preseason games with some quick pass rush wins. He had a really nice pass deflection against the Cleveland Browns, knew he wasn't going to get there in time, got his hands up. My eyes naturally see number 93, and I think of now a Super Bowl legend in Milton Williams, getting into the backfield. So my eyes gravitate towards that number on the interior. So I did find myself noticing Jacob Sykes over the last 2 games and seeing that he's got a pretty explosive first step off the line of scrimmage, really violent hands, and he's got a really good motor. Sykes is somebody I'm kind of intrigued by. And again, even if he doesn't make the 53, if they're only going to keep 5 defensive tackles, he's somebody that I think is a really intriguing practice squad candidate. So those are the players I'm watching on defense today. It's Rockwell, and Jacob Sykes on the defensive line. And then for me, it's all about the corners. Somebody go out there and prove to Vic Fangio you're the starter, and not just by default, it's Adoree Jackson because he's the veteran with experience, and it's just the highest floor, which I don't agree with that has the highest floor, but I think Vic Fangio feels that way. All right, guys, we'll wrap up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. Coming up next, what's your favorite preseason finale memory? Eagles, Jets, it's been happening our entire lives. I've got a really good one I'll get into coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by Betterhelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what exactly works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what's actually going to help. That's where talking to a licensed therapist through Betterhelp can make all the difference. You get real, personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. I've been in therapy now for a few years. And again, I read online, I read books about the right ways to, handle anxiety, handle depression, but having a therapist really help you focus on things and have a set strategy and attack it head on, that has really helped. And you can do that through BetterHelp with over 30,000 therapists. BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit into your schedule. Just click to connect, and you can even switch therapists anytime if you need to. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, one final preseason preview for the 2025 season right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. It's a classic tonight. Eagles-Jets is always or at least outside of I think last year it didn't happen, but for 99% of my life, Eagles-Jets has been the final preseason game. And so there's been a lot of standout performers that maybe made the 53 because of this game, or even if they didn't make the Eagles roster, they ended up going on to other teams, at least being solid backups. Some of them really good starters, like Raheem Mostert is a guy I always remember, had a big game against the Jets in that one preseason finale in the 2010s, and Raheem Mostert's put together a pretty solid career with the 49ers, with the Dolphins, now with the Raiders. Ashton Genty's backup. Raheem Mostert used to be like a preseason hero in Philadelphia Eagles lore. We know about Paul Turner and the Greg Wards of the world. Like, there's just been so many running backs and receivers that have balled out. But for me, like, if I had to go down memory lane and pinpoint like one famous moment, or at least the one like most memorable moment in Eagles Jets that I can remember, is, for me, I think this one's obvious. Maybe you guys have other ones. I'd love to know. Hit me up on X at LockdownBirds, at DiBiase LOE. For me, it's Tim Tebow in 2015. I think that's my favorite preseason finale memory, or favorite preseason finale performance. Even though it did not result in Tebow making the 53-man roster, Tebow had a really good game against the Jets. He ran for a touchdown. He had a passing touchdown as well through the air, made some really nice plays outside of structure. And for me, it was just so cool to see like an all-time college quarterback that we all watched. Like, you can make the argument Tim Tebow is the best college football player of all time. He had become a globally famous like NFL urban legend because of what he did in 2010. Tebow Mania in Denver had the whole world watching. Like, it was the NFL's version of Linsanity. Ended up winning a playoff game. And just like a few years later, this guy is wearing an Eagles jersey. Like, it just kind of felt surreal. It felt really weird. And he was like your third string quarterback. So I don't know. It was just kind of like a fever dream that entire offseason. Your quarterback room that offseason, that summer, was Sam Bradford, Mark Sanchez, and Tim Tebow. Like, I hate the 2015 Eagles. It's the only time in my life, even like 2020, I didn't feel this way. It's the only time in my life I hated watching Eagles football. I was miserable. I didn't like the players. I was just not a fan of my own team. Like, that's what it felt like. But that summer, at least, was a little bit exciting, right? Remember, Bradford blew out the Green Bay Packers, and Adam Schefter picked the Eagles to win the Super Bowl and picked Bradford to win Super Bowl MVP. Like, there were some crazy takes out there about how good that football team could be, and it just never came to fruition. But at least that summer was fun. And Tim Tebow closed it off with a bang. Like, he was really good. I highly recommend going back and watching those highlights of Tebow in the preseason, because he made some plays, and I thought his throwing motion was a little bit better. I thought he was going to make the team. I thought with that performance, he had locked up a third quarterback spot. But Chip Kelly wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid. And it's funny, I don't know why I remember this, but he ended up keeping Bradford and Sanchez on the roster. He did keep a third quarterback. Like, this is sicko Eagles trivia. But he ended up he cut Tim Tebow and ended up claiming Stephen Morris on waivers. Stephen Morris was a former Miami U quarterback that had some mobility. I actually did like him coming out of college when I was a kid. But I don't know why I remember that. I think his name was Stephen Morris. Don't quote me on that. But he ended up cutting Tim Tebow and then picking that guy off waivers from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So a weird offseason. And, it's funny, like, going to games sometimes in Philadelphia, I do sometimes still see a number 11 Eagles jersey. And it's normally like a counterfeit one, right? Because how else do you acquire a Tebow Eagles jersey? And I'll see that number 11 and say, oh, like, there's a A.J. Brown jersey, of course, or a Carson Wentz. Like, I got no problem with that jersey being either one of those players. And then suddenly the guy turns around and Tebow's on the back of the jersey. Like, you still get that every so often. It is kind of a cool, if you're like a jersey collector, if you have like a good jersey collection, I think a Tebow Eagles is really good. Even if it's counterfeit, I see those all the time still at tailgates down in South Philly. It's just funny, though, because you always think it's Wentz or Brown, and then it's Tim Tebow from the top ropes. But that's a fun moment in the preseason for the Eagles, because, again, it's a famous college. I love when, like, famous college football players, even if they don't make the team, ended up playing for the Eagles. Like, I loved Dennis Dixon in college at Oregon when he was like the Heisman favorite in 2007 before he tore his ACL against Arizona. And then when Chip Kelly first started in Philly, like, his first move was to bring in Dennis Dixon. It's just cool because, again, you grew up loving those guys in college, and then it's kind of neat to see them in an Eagles jersey. And Tim Tebow, again, was like globally famous at that time. And here he is just balling out in the Eagles preseason finale. Like, just such a weird again, fever dream meta kind of season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm glad we are where we are now. But that was definitely a fond moment in Eagles-Jets history in the preseason. All right, guys, enjoy the game. We'll be back for our live Locked On Eagles squad show tonight after the game on YouTube with Jason Martius and Harry May. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles on all platforms, and I'll see you on Monday as well for another week of shows as we move forward to week 1. Thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening. Thanks for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Fly, Eagles, fly. Let's go, Birds.